Well everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the Ultimate HEMA comparison. From our spectacular campsites on the most remote of tracks to the workshop and everything in between, your next episode of Great Off-Road Adventures is just seconds away. If you didn't catch part 1, we talked about and discussed the pros and cons of the HN7 versus the HX1. And now in part 2, we're going to look at the HEMA 4Drive Maps application versus the HEMA Explorer application. What one's better, what are the pros and cons of both, and what one I would recommend you guys look into getting if you need to upgrade, or perhaps you're starting out with your forward driving and your off-road navigation and this all is a bit new to you. Hopefully by going through this video, it's just going to help clarify a few points for you. Again, drop your comments or your questions in the comment section below and I'll happily go through and answer them to the best that I can. So without any further ado, let's start looking at the pros and cons of the HEMA 4Drive Maps application and the Explorer one. So I'm going to start with the Maps application. And I'm going to go off the same criteria that I used for the HN7 and the HX1. Because again, I'm predominantly looking at their off-road mapping abilities, their functionality, their ease of use. So when it comes to transferring data to the HEMA 4-wheel drive's Maps application, the application is not actually owned or developed by HEMA. It's developed by a third-party company called Memory Maps, who I guess sold the license or something to HEMA, which is how HEMA was able to rebrand it as their own application. Again, you can wirelessly sync data to this application, but it's definitely not as easy as the HX1 or the Explorer app. You have to go to the Memory Maps online portal, I guess, or the online internet site, create your account, sign in both online and to your device, and then you can upload to the online Memory Maps area, but you are limited to the amount of waypoints you can upload and the file size that you can upload each day. So yeah, that's a limitation to Memory Maps, but you don't have that issue with the HEMA Cloud. The HEMA Cloud's unlimited in terms of how much you can upload and store on it. You can, obviously, once you upload it, you can just come across into your device, which I believe it's in Overlays and under this little Options tab, and then you can sync your data just from the cloud. Similar way to the HX1 and the Explorer app. But as you'll see in this data folder here now, these are all my marks or waypoints, and there is no folder structure here. You've got all your waypoints in one big list, then you've got all your tracks and routes in what would be their lists. You can't put them, you can't group them into just a Southwest category or just a Dontreux National Park category or just a Wellington Dam category. So that is a big complaint of mine and a big con to the HEMA 4Drive's Maps application. When you're looking on the map and you're trying to look between all your waypoints, if you want to go and turn some of those waypoints off so they're not displayed on the screen, you have to turn off each individual waypoint on its own. So you got to go in here, tick that, come down, make it visible or make it invisible. And then you got to go to the next one. Again, come down, make it visible or make it invisible. And I tell you, that gives me the shits. I'd prefer just to have a whole trip set of waypoints, like all the waypoints of Wellington Dam, and I can just turn on all the waypoints for that trip, turn on all the tracks for that trip, or turn them all off altogether so they're not on the map, they're not cluttering up the map. So yeah, that's a big complaint of mine. In terms of ease of use, the 4Drive's application is pretty easy to use. Given that it's installed on a tablet, you can just navigate it around it by sliding the map, pinching, zooming in, and all of that. So, you know, it's pretty good. It's fairly easy to use. The only thing is, when you zoom in, you start to lose a bit of detail on the map compared to the Explorer application and the HX1 and even HN7. Even though we're using the same map, as you can see on the screen right now, we've zoomed in, but we've got pixelation on the map. And we don't have as much data. Like, there's heaps of tracks in this area here, and I'll demonstrate and I'll show you quickly on the Explorer app the level of information that's there. We're looking at this section of the Blackwood River here, just around Jalbarragup, between Nannup and Sues Road, which is there. So we just don't have that information on the four-wheel drive maps for whatever reason. So yeah, so functionality, the way I see it, because you don't have a folder structure, the functionality is not great. It's a good electronic map that shows where you are on it. It's very frustrating if you try and put a trip on here. You pretty much can only put on one trip at a time, or one section of a trip at a time. So like when we did the Rocks to Reef series, I had the HN7, I had Carragini as one folder, I had Exmouth as another folder, I had Shark Bay as a third folder. And that meant that I could just load the section that we were in at the time and have the other bit sort of sitting in the background. And then when we left Carragini, I turned off and removed all that data from the map, and I just loaded the Exmouth stuff. Now that would be impossible to do on the Four Wheel Drive's app, because you have to turn on every single waypoint and track on its own. And just thinking about it, it gives me a migraine. So functionality, not that great. I mean, it's good, it's an electronic map and it shows you where you are. But yeah, really, considering that, you know, this is a $100 application, I would have expected a lot more, especially when it came to, like I said, I'm probably harping on it, a folder structure and an ability to organise and, you know, keep your trips and waypoints and stuff organised. It's severely lacking in that department. So yeah, that pretty much covers off pros and cons of the Four Wheel Drive app. There's this little dashboard section here, so you can start logging. It shows you your speed, the distance, the time that it's taken to travel, but it removes your map. So that is a bit of a inconvenience, really, that that you lose your map when you go and look at your dashboard for data. So not the greatest. In terms of adding waypoints and all that, you know, it's pretty easy to do. Touch of a button, add your waypoint, and then obviously you can edit it, title it different things and all that. So yeah, you know, in that regard, it's just as easy to add waypoints and start track logging and stuff on the Four Wheel Drive app as it is compared to the HN7 or the HX1. Let's now go to the Explorer app and we'll see what the differences are. So when it comes to transferring data for the Explorer app, it's exactly the same as the HX1. You open up your side menu, you go to settings, and you can see I'm logged into my HEMA account, and I just punch sync and it syncs all the latest data down from the cloud. And then obviously at the same time, any new data that's on the iPad, waypoints, tracks, etc., it pushes up into the cloud. And it's really that easy. And then if I've added stuff on my iPad whilst I've been out and about, I can just go onto my computer, click download it back into Google Earth from the cloud. So it's really quite handy. So yeah, I don't need to touch much on the ability to transfer data because it is super easy. So the next thing is organising trips and trip planning and that sort of thing. I'll turn off all my waypoints. I've still got my tracks on here, but you know, they don't clutter it too much. and we're going to turn on all the HEMA points of interest. So again, just like the HX1, the Explorer app has all these interactive points of interest. So it has boat ramps, medical facilities, fuel stations, accommodation, bush camps, rangers' huts, all of that. It's all sort of on here, and you can click on them and get more information as you need. So there we go, boat ramp, we click on it. There's also a wood barbecue and tables at that location, and we can navigate to it if we so wish. So I'll just turn off those points of interest so they don't clutter the screen up too much. You'll see again, I'm using exactly the same map as all the other 3 devices because personal preference for me, it's the map that I feel has the most information. When it comes to a folder structure, I reckon this is probably the pick of the bunch. Not only can I have trip folder structures set up, so we're focusing on the southwest, I can turn on my Brunswick trip, I can turn on my Cape to Cape trip, I can turn on my Bailing Up Nannup trip, the Mundell track and Wellington Dam, and I'll just turn on all my waypoints that are with them. I can then turn off the whole southwest region if I'm not doing anything in the southwest, and say I'm just going to do day trips around Perth. I can then go to my day trips folder, and again, say I just want to focus on let's say Dwelling Up day trip, which is the Captain Fawcett track. I can turn off everything else and I can just focus on that one trip. So, and then when I zoom out, I don't have everything else cluttering up. I've got my Goldfield stuff because that's also turned on at the moment. The folder structure on the Explorer app, in my opinion, it takes the cake. It's super easy to use, super easy to set up. As soon as you import something, if you import it as a sort of folder from the computer, then you can just file it under any one of these folders in the app. And you can quite easily just make a new one. Let's say I was going up to the Kimberley. I can literally just create a new folder here, call it the Kimberleys, and then I can add each station. I can add the Gibb River Road. I can add a sub-folder for going up to Columbaroo and Mitchell Falls. Pretty much your options are unlimited. In terms of ease of use, you'll have seen that the application is really responsive. When I want to zoom in, it zooms in straight away. There's no lag, there's no glitches. It's quick, it's easy to use. It's intuitive because it's pinch and zoom and it's just, slide the map around. So in that regard, it's super easy to use. As for its functionality, you've obviously got your info bar down the bottom. If for whatever reason you want to change any of these, you can. So right now we're looking at the sunrise sunset time. I can change that to my current speed or average speed. It's pretty handy. And you don't lose that information when you you can have your dashboard up at the same time as your map, which is very beneficial, I reckon, because you get both information and mapping at the same time. You don't have to try and swap between the 2 screens. Going into some more functionality, this is the only sort of application or off-road application that allows you to do routing that I've found. Across all of these ones, none others do routing. So let's look for an example here. Let's find something off-road. A point of interest per se. Barrabup Pool, all right? We're going to use Barrabup Pool as our example. We can then punch in here, Barrabup Pool, hit go, and this will calculate the best route from where you are, and it's not quite turn-by-turn navigation, but it's as close as you're going to get it in an off-road platform. So it's given us the best route through Perth to go out of Ellenbrook, where I am, along Reid Highway, down the main freeway, through Bunbury, and then down the Vass Highway to Nannup and into Barrup Pool. And it's even picked up the track and shown us come in on the track. And, you know, that is pretty powerful. So it's given you a line to follow at least. It's told us it's 321 kilometres and it's going to take us 3 hours and 48 minutes. If we really want to put it to the test, then, you know, let's look out here at Yeo Homestead and see if it'll pick that up and if it'll navigate us to it. Yeo Lake Homestead. How's that? So it's got us going on road all the way through to Laverton, and then we go off on the Great Central Road and all the way into Yeo Lake Homestead. So, I mean, that's pretty powerful. That's 1,188 kilometres from here. So, you know, pretty handy sort of thing to use. It's great for trip planning and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's pretty good in terms of its functionality. As for overall pros and cons, I don't have a great deal of cons. I only really have pros. The price is right to start with. It's a $50 application to buy, and I would encourage all of you to get the $50 upgrade as well to the pro level subscription. As for the price, well, it's $100 to get full functionality from the app. And it's absolutely worth it. The level of detail and the information, the functionality, you can't beat it in my opinion. It certainly is, again, like I said before, leagues and leagues ahead of the four-wheel drive application, especially when it comes in pretty much being the same price. Now, how does the Explorer app compare to the HX1 and the HN7? It's pretty close to the HX1, but given the price difference, $100 for the application compared to $600 or $550 if you get it on special for the HX1, the Explorer app wins out. Yes, you don't get your on-road navigation, but I can quite easily just leave HEMA and go straight to Google Maps. And hey presto, guess what? Google Maps, I've now got on-road navigation. The only catch with this is for Google Maps and for HEMA Explorer, when you leave your Wi-Fi area, you need to download your maps for offline use. Now, all these other three devices, the maps are downloaded, or especially the four-wheel drive map, the four-wheel drive application, the maps are downloaded when you download the application. So you don't need to store your maps for offline use. And obviously the HN7, the HX1, the maps are stored inside them. So again, you can go off the grid, away from Wi-Fi, and you have, you know, your full access to your maps. You have the same thing with the Explorer app, but you do need to remember to store your maps for offline use. And obviously same with Google Maps. When you leave Wi-Fi areas and network areas, if you still want to have Google Maps and turn-by-turn directions, you need to have it stored for offline use. And I guess the last thing to touch on, which is a specific iPad-related thing, if you have a Wi-Fi only iPad, you need to add in a GPS receiver chip. If you have a cellular and Wi-Fi iPad, inbuilt in your iPad is a little GPS receiver. So in my case, I have the cellular enabled iPad, which allows me just to install the app and go straight on. But if I had a Wi-Fi only one, I'd need to add a little plug-in receiver. So again, what's the best in my opinion? I reckon you can't beat the iPad or another form of tablet, because let's be honest, who doesn't have a tablet these days? I mean, a lot of people have a Samsung tablet or a Google Nexus tablet, whatever, Android tablet or an iPad. It's not particularly relevant as to what operating system you're using, but in terms of functionality, in terms of what you can do with the app, I reckon the HEMA Explorer app is the way to go. You install it on your tablet and you get so much more functionality, because alongside the HEMA Explorer app, you can install Wikicamps, which shows you obviously camp spots and all that other stuff. You can install Google Maps, you can install YouTube. I've got Photoshop, Lightroom and stuff like that installed on my iPad. So when I'm out and about in the bush, I can plug memory cards in or Wi-Fi photos to my iPad, edit them, and I can do all that stuff. I can't do that on the HEMA HN7 or the HX1. So that is why the iPad wins out for me. Now, if you don't have an iPad or you don't have a tablet, it gets a little bit closer in terms of a cost comparison. For reference, when my HN7 started giving me too many issues, I went and started looking for an iPad mini. I found this, which is a 4th generation iPad mini, 256 gig, so plenty of internal storage. I got it on Gumtree, pretty much brand new in the box for $400. And like I said, it's a cellular and Wi-Fi enabled version. That is a good deal. Probably $500 would still be considered a pretty good price. And so then on top of that, I bought $100 worth of HEMA application, and I'm at a similar sort of price point as if I was to go and buy a HX1. But I've got obviously a lot more functionality with that tablet or iPad, whatever your preference is. So yeah, I hope you've found part 2 useful. It's probably been a little bit longer than part 1 because there's a bit more involved in comparing the 2 apps, particularly the Explorer app. There's a lot more functionality in it, and I trying to obviously share with you guys where it's better than obviously its competitors, so to say. Again, if you have any questions in relation to this, go down there in the comments, drop them in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be a few questions that you want to ask, and I'll do my best to answer them all. At this stage, stay safe out there. Keep an eye out for each other, friends, family and partners, and hopefully we can get out on the tracks and trails soon. If not, we'll see you in the next episode. Go down there, smash that subscribe button. If you found these 2 videos useful, then go down there and hit that thumbs up button. And if you're bored and you're still isolating like probably the rest of us, you can go over there and watch all our other videos. Anyway, for now, stay safe and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.